Scott's here to help answer any questions on the agenda as well, so we're up there.
Thank you, John. The U.S. Forest Service, which of you is the person?
Parker Erickson.
Okay. You want to go ahead and, is there anybody else here for Forest Service? I don't see anybody. So, Forest Service here, California State Parks, John Piles, are you the representative voting?
I am present.
And you want to introduce another person who,
Yeah.
unnamed person over here?
So Mike Dipple is here as well. He's our chief ranger for Monterey District.
Great. And that brings us to the Big Sur Chamber of Commerce. Rick Alding, are you here?
I'm here.
Very well, and we have a quorum, and that is wonderful, and I would like now to move to approve the remote participation of Sarah Harvey due to the Highway 1 active closure per AB 2449 emergency circumstances. Does anybody want to make a motion to do that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no, and that carries, and so Sarah Harvey, you are officially here, yes?
Yes, thank you.
And I believe you have to say there's no one
Yeah.
over 18, what's the number?
Yeah, Sarah, can you please confirm that you have no one under the age of 18 in the room with you?
Yeah, confirmed. There's nobody in the room with me.
Thank you.
At all, of any age, okay. Great. That brings us to the point at which we need to ask Katie to tell people how to participate remotely in case they don't know, which has always been odd to me because if you weren't on, how would you know about the instructions?
Yes. Participants can participate through Zoom by dialing in at 1-669-219-2599, and you can mute and unmute by pressing *6. And the meeting ID for the meeting today is 936-8644-2752. And we're also accepting public comments, and you can email us at bsbo@countyofmonterey.gov.
Although we can't guarantee we'll get to your emails during the meeting, unfortunately, but we will certainly record them if we are unable to do that. Thank you, Katie. This is a point which we do agenda additions, deletions, and corrections. I've already made the correction to the roll call for the members list, and also would draw to your attention, we have just sent out recently some emails we received from Alan Perlmutter and Dick Ravitch about item number C, that's sort of complicated. The Sycamore Canyon of CB, Sycamore Canyon Road and Highway 1 intersection safety concerns. So those are added to the record and will be available when we get to that agenda item. Okay. And so this is the time we set aside for public comment on items that are not on today's agenda, but which are within the purview of the Big Sur Byways organization. Is there anybody who would like to say something not on the agenda? Yes.
Thank you. Alyssa Rendon from C Monterey, the destination marketing organization for Monterey County. Just wanted to share that last week, we officially launched our How to Highway 1. It's more than a campaign, but it's really an initiative to be a little more resilient in our communication plans along Highway 1 and in Big Sur. We kicked it off with a satellite media tour out of Nepenthe with Kurt Capital and someone from the Rodeo on the peninsula, just to kind of talk about visitation to Big Sur, how to travel along Highway 1, not only logistically, but responsibly, respectfully. So we've included, thank you to the state parks for the information and content on invasive species. So we've included that in not only our refreshed landing page, but in our social media. What else? Oh, and we've also worked with California Coastal or Central Coast Tourism Council, as well as Visit California to reinforce this messaging. So it's not just us working in silos, but it'll be a messaging that's kind of spread out throughout the state. And so we're all kind of on the same page. So if you want to take a look at the new landing page, it has more information there and can share it.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you.
I also understand that we're in a somewhat of a difficulty with respect to taking minutes. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, so we're a little short-staffed. Just last week, we lost one of our, Mary Kelly, who used to sit at this table. But we'll be getting the position refilled I know, I think it was about 2 years ago that we've kind of agreed to help with administration and taking minutes, so this meeting, unfortunately, we're a little short-staffed on that, but hopefully we can provide support once we get that position refilled.
Thank you. And I understand that this meeting is being recorded so that we at least will have a record of it from that perspective. So thank you. We appreciate your continued commitment to helping us out. Anybody else? Public comment not on the agenda. Anybody online have their hand up? Can't see because like,
I can stop sharing so we can go back to Zoom.
yeah,
We have
oh, yeah.
District 5.
District 5. Okay. District 5, I think you are able to speak, should be.
There we go.
Yes? It looks still muted to me, Katie.
Okay, unmuted now. I got it. I'm unmuted. I did it there. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Supervisor Daniels, well,
Wonderful. I just wanted to let you know that I am here. It is Supervisor Kate Daniels. I am in the office with Kimberly Craig, who's my Chief of Staff, and Marcus Michi, who is our intern. And I just wanted to come today. I was hoping to be there in person. I'm really looking forward to the items that are on the agenda and the updates and presentations. And so I did not want to miss today. And I'm a member of the public and just watching. And thank you very much.
great, thank you so much for taking the time. Anybody else online? Last call in the room. Not seeing anybody, we're gonna go ahead and move right along to the approval of the minutes of March 5th, which were distributed with your packet. Any additions, corrections to those before we go on? Any public comment? Anybody in the room or online about that?
No comments on, no one's raised their
Comments
hands.
online, that being the case, is anybody willing to make a motion? Well, minutes.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
So Mark moves that we approve the minutes as presented with thanks. I always say that. Anybody?
Second.
Seconded by Rick. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no, and we have accepted the minutes. Thank you very much, Trustee Monterey, for having done that, and makes a huge difference. We have to go back now. I have been acting as chair in the lack of anybody else being chair, but I did resign and get reappointed to a different position. So that would mean that appropriately, I would like to run for chair again. But I'm willing to take nominations for anybody who wants that job right now. Anybody else want to do that? You can nominate me if you want to be formal. No, that would be all right.
I nominate.
Dan's gonna nominate me,
Second.
and Steve is gonna second that. Any further nominations? Any further discussion? In that case, since there's nobody else, I'm gonna say, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Thank you. And I just want to say it's wonderful to have a full slate of members here. I'm hoping that will really help with us having a quorum and being able to go on about our business. It's fabulous to have the house full. All right. We're going to start out today with an in-depth technical presentation on Regent slide from Caltrans. And I'm going to put a timer on for this discussion because I know there's so much to talk about for 45 minutes. So no one feels we're cutting people off for any reason except for time.
Byways 625.
And I'm going to start by just asking John, if you're presenting, could you just couch this presentation at the beginning with, give us an understanding of what Byways can do to help? What is the function? What are we supposed to be listening for?
Thank you, Mark. So, we're really glad to be here. The Regis slide is our last controlling slide, keeping highway closed at the moment. And we've had we communicate ongoing through media releases. We speak regularly with some key stakeholders. Very regularly, we've been making responding to comments, making updates at the BISMAC. But this is a great place to bring now a conversation of, a more technical discussion to talk about the region slide. Just a little bit of history, not a whole lot, but a little bit of history and why we're making some of the, why we have the approach that we do today. And just share really some of the real dynamic of the slide and things that are happening out there every day. Very, very pertinent. And some of the new technologies we've been using, you all have seen the information about the remote control equipment. We'll talk a little about that. But just kind of share the real dynamic of the geology of what's happening there. You all don't get to see it every day. For example, like you get to drive over Rocky Creek every day. Rocky Creek has been a huge success, but you got to see it. Regions has had a lot of really innovative and good things happening as well, but you don't get to see it. So that was the idea today, is to pull back that curtain, so to speak, and just get to share and give the public an opportunity to ask questions and talk about the region slide itself. Very unique and very different than almost anything else we've been doing. So Tim Campbell is in charge of all things construction for District 5. He oversees all the operations that are happening there, our contractors, our the events and the daily things. So I wanted to bring you the best, the one who knows everything about this, so that we can just take some time to talk about it, dispel any myths, share any information that we can, and take any questions we can. So that was our hope and intent today in bringing this to this committee.
So, thank you. So a little bit about myself. So as John said, I'm the Deputy District Director for Project Development and Construction. I started my Caltrans career back in 1990. In construction, my whole career has been involved in construction, except for maybe like 1 year. And so in 98, I was the acting construction area manager for a portion of the Big Sur coast during El Nino. So I have that experience. That was my first experience on the coast when we had mud, or duck pond, and as we all know, the other issues we had up here. So we had numerous slides that year. So I've been involved in working on the coast for quite a while, and also during Mud Creek and Rat Creek and Fall Slide. So I'll go through and just kind of give you a little background of what we've had and some of the challenges we've had here. So one other thing I'd like to say is that I did present something similar to this at our stakeholders group, and that's where it also came about that this would be a good forum to present to everybody else here. So glad we could be here, share this information. So go ahead and next slide. Obviously, it was February of 2024 when the slide first occurred. Next slide. Here you can see the area outlined, the grassy area above on the top, and then you can see those two, we call them chutes, the north chute and the south chute, in which the slide occurred, and material came down and buried the highway. Next. So what the plan was to go down and try to clean out that area from the head of the slide, which, as you know, was that barren landscaped area. But to do that, we needed to come in and prepare a little area up above to get down and start making the cut slightly above where the head of the slide was and work our way down. Next slide. So now we're into June of 2024. The excavation was going fairly well at the time. We had 3 spider.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm getting text now that the Zoom viewers are not seeing this presentation. They can hear us, but they're still seeing our agenda.
Okay. Can you all see it now? Sorry.
Not quite yet.
Could
It
you-
just says you started screen sharing. Hopefully it's going to come up in just a sec.
Okay.
Maybe the other Zoom attendees weren't having the same problem. I don't know.
They are.
Katie, maybe
Okay.
you stop share again, and then share, and then pick that, not the screen. Share just the document. Yeah, the document.
Is that working for you, Kate?
And I'm still just seeing that you've started screen sharing. Maybe it's my computer. I'm still waiting for it to come up, but it does say you've started screen sharing, but no image yet. Oh, there we go. I can see it in its full glory. Thank you.
Great.
We did warn you about technology.
Yes.
Yeah, I apologize. I wasn't able to log into the Wi-Fi. I couldn't do this myself, but, so the strategy was to minimize, right, what we're doing. So we try to minimize the excavations on the coast, try to get the slide cleared as quickly as possible. So we wanted to take out the minimum of the slide. To do that, obviously, as you can see from the previous pictures, very steep terrain, right? So we went in with the spider hose. So here you see the four spider hose, one up above the slope too, but we had the 4 spider hose on site, very precarious, hanging down over that cliff. And so what we had to do was we had to tie them off to the dozers. So we parked dozers up above on the slope, and all those spiders were cabled off. And part of that reason is because it's obviously very unstable, small sliver that we're trying to take out of material. Next slide. So things were going fairly well. And you can see the type of material we're down into here. We're going to call it the blocky rock area. So it is a lot of fractured rock. But as we went down and pushing the material over the slope, typically that would build up in a less steep situation. It would build up and you have more of a bigger bench to work off of, right? So as we continue down, next slide. What occurred was the material, that rocky area below us started to break away. So as we push material over some of that, it started to break away, take some of those bigger boulders down with it, which then undercut the bench where the spiders where the excavators were sitting. So we had to make some adjustments. So next slide. So in July, we decided to go back to the top. We needed a wider bench. Right, so it was as the bench continued to crumble away, we did have a small dozer in there too at one point. We had to pull the dozer out and we had to pull the spiders out because there was going to be no way to cross because the center of the bench just started eroding away and they were going to be trapped there. So we had to go back, redesign, go up a little bit higher, flatten the slope out so that when we got back down to the rocky area, that it would be a more stable bench. Also, when we were in that rocky area, we did have some signs of some stability, and there were some rocks there that we actually had to blast, right? And pop those rocks to fracture them so that we can excavate them out. So we know that back on the backside of that thing, there is still some solid rock material. So it was good that we got to know that as we went down to that point. Next slide. So as we started this new excavation, what happened was there was some movements up above, right? So up on the right side, you can see up higher up, there's an excavation going on, that dark brown line. I'm trying to cut the slope above there. But even before that, we had an issue where in that lower cut slope below that piece of equipment, there was some cracks that started to develop. And so it's kind of a relieving of stress, right? As we remove some of the material down there, it's like there's some stress relief in the slope, and so there was some cracking. So what we did was having the spider hose, we were able to go back up there and drill in what we call shear dowels. And so we drill into 40 to 60 feet deep, throw a steel rod in there and grout that rod. And that helps bring some strength to that slope and pin it together, right? So we did some of that. And it seemed to be effective. But however, something happened above us again, right? So this is where we decided to go back up, take a little bit more material because we had that loose material now above us, and we needed to clean that out so it would make a safe work zone for the workers down below, right? Our most important thing here is safety. And so we wanted to make sure it was safe for them, that they're not working under a block of material that could come down. It was a shallow slide, so we just modified the cut, went up and removed that loose material. And then we came. That's great. So then we move in here, you can see some of the success. The slope is coming down. Next slide. And then what happened was we started to, in August here, we started to see some, there it is. Oh, yeah. Okay. So you can, if you look closely, there's a little red line, but up in that brown vegetated area, there's a crack started to develop much higher above us now. And so is that, yes, right around there, you can see that red line, and it goes all the way up and around that access road. So next slide. So once again, we had to pull off and reassess, what do we do now? So next slide. So in September, we went in and you can see the blue dots. So those 3 blue dots are slope inclinometers. So we drilled down vertically into the soil, and we put a slope inclinometer. It measures the lateral movement, right? It can move up to 3 inches, and then it'll break off after that. So it's all it'll monitor is like 3 inches. So it tells us the depth of the slide that's above us. So what you can see is the yellow is where we found all the cracking to happen. So the head of the slide is the top, the toe of the slide is the bottom. The toe of the slide was essentially above that rocky, that blocky rock area. So it turns out to be a slide above our slide, right? And so those 3 slope inclinometers were placed immediately. The one in the lower one broke off immediately. So within 24 hours, they moved 3 inches and was snapped. So, but at least we got the data that what the depth of that was, right? So the others we continue to monitor, they continue to move. In addition to that, we went in and some of the latest technology of these things called shape arrays. And so the 3 green dots up above are what we put in, or called shape arrays. And so same thing, the vertical drilling, you put a device down this conduit, right? Put a pipe in the ground, put this device down there, and it can transmit everything to our district office so we can collect the data of how much movement there is. And we can see a lot more movement than just 3 inches, right? So we can monitor the movement much longer, but we also know the depth. So we were able to do that. In addition to that, the pink outline there, we decided that's essentially was going to be the limits of the new excavation. Try to flatten that slope out a little bit more than as much as we could at the time. In order to do that, learning from what we did before, as we excavate, we find this cracking above us. So we went ahead and put in what we call shear dowels, which is what I described earlier. So there's the graphic on the side. You're drilling vertical into the slope, horizontal to the slope face, and once again, put a steel rod in there and grout it. So we put a whole line at the top of the excavation, put in about 100 shear dowels up above along the top of the cut, along just below between the pink line and the green, actually, is where they're waiting. Try to secure and stabilize that area. The road up above is critical access for us, so we wanted to make sure that was also stable. So that was the plan. It took a while. It took a while to manufacture those shape arrays. But once again, we're in an active slide. We can't put workers down in there immediately. So we had to make sure we got all that equipment in place. The monitoring can resume again. In addition to that monitoring, we also have survey points all over the slope that we shoot manually, old-fashioned survey ways. Go ahead. So early in December, we went right back to work. The rest of the work completed around Thanksgiving time or so. Got our monitoring in place, got our new excavation plan, went right back at it hard. And so you can see us moving down. Slope again from the top. And then what occurred was we had slides below us and the side of us. So on the north side of the slope here, you see the one outlined in yellow. It's called the north, we called it the North Gully. There's a little ridge line in between, and then you can see the blue one called the overnight slide. So those are 2 slides that mobilized below us. These gave us some great difficulty because the rapid rate of movement. So now those things were moving up to a foot a day. So next slide.
I'm just curious, how many areas are similar to this? And is there any way to go in before the slide happens and stabilize them?
No, I mean, obviously it's stood for a very long time without any issues, right?
Right.
And so we don't know when they're going to occur, how you stabilize it. One of the issues we have, right, is when we go in, so we are in the Franciscan Formation, the edge of a continent, right? So it's a conglomerate of materials. There's all kinds of ridgelines. Some things are hidden, we don't see it. So the more you disturb, there's a chance of finding something else or creating another problem. So that's why the minimization efforts are best, right? One, it's quicker to get the road open. And two is that we don't want to get into these other areas and create other problems. So, but basically you can see, like, for example, especially the North Gully, just material just started caving away. I mean, the bottom just kept moving and moving. I'll have some other visuals for that. Go ahead, next slide.
Sorry, it froze. Well, let's see.
Few slides back, when you went in with devices to see where the slide was moving, you said one broke off almost immediately. How deep were those? How deep was the break?
That was it was probably about 60 or 70 feet deep. So, well, we're kind of stuck on this, but you can see that bigger, flatter bench where, you can see kind of that rocky area I talked about below. We got down to there, and then we went back and we got back down to that big, flatter bench that you see now, right? And then we retreated and got back up to the top. And so that bench will give us some challenges in the future too, but
That's not supposed to share.
the toe of that slide that we showed from a previous thing, which the been drawn slide, toes out in that between just below that bigger, flatter area, right? It doesn't go all the way down to the bottom. It kind of, the bottom of it came out in that slope just below the bench. So we had it pretty well defined. Sorry, online for those that are
Sorry, we're
in
having,
picture.
it's not showing correctly on the screen.
Are you able to stop sharing?
Yeah, let me disconnect from the TV really quick. Sorry, everyone.
Technical difficulties. What technically going on? I guess for me, the approach is really fascinating, of course, because it's always amazing to see what you can do with equipment and engineering. But I'm more interested right now, since we're committed to this approach in this location, to whether there's any thought that there is a more minimalist approach in other situations. In other words, the idea of going that far up the slope where we truly see that you've found an additional slide, which we assume was going to be there in many other cases. Typically, we haven't gone that high to open a road. Typically, we've blown the road open, it's closed again, we've blown the road open, it closed again. So how many places are similar to this in this general idea, where there is a slide above, if we went there and looked for it?
So there's no evidence of the slide before the upper portion until we got in there and started working, right?
Right, well, and so there wouldn't have been an evidence of it
Right.
in other cases either.
Right, so, I mean, every slide is different, right? I mean, we can look at the most recent ones, Mud Creek, right? We didn't have to go up because the whole thing actually came down. And that's the, as big as it was, as massive as it was, that was a good thing for us, right? If some material had been left hanging up there that we had to do something with, that would have been, I mean, I think we had close to over a year, it would have been much longer had we gotten to the top, right? So, however, we were also fortunate in what happened because when the mountain came down, those two peaks kind of stayed there and it allowed this material from the head that as rock shed from it naturally. It had a place to be catchment area that preserved the highway and we could build the highway right over it. Haul slide is moving, constantly moving, different type of material, right? It's just like a muddy, saturated mess. There's no place to go to the top because once again, the further you go, the more material comes down. And so we try to once again minimize what we can, get the road open as soon as we can. There's cracking all over that, but there's really nothing you could do with that type of material, right? So and you can't just take the mountain down, you can't realign the road inland because you're still in the same formation, right? It's the same type of material. So it's kind of the living with landslides, as we all know, right? So how do we minimize to get the road open as quickly as we can? Committed to that. And so, but I don't know that there's permanent solutions for these areas, right? We tried to build walls and the walls just start collapsing. That tall slide, there's a tieback wall there and all the tendons just snap. You can just, the contractors out there working, you can just hear them snapping while they're working. You know, the whole wall is pushed out. We'll try to preserve everything we can to slow it down, but you know, the wall has been compromised. And so we've kind of reworked everything this past year to try to, you know, have an earthwork solution, move the road over a little bit, try to buttress the movement up above it. And so we're trying actively doing things like that. But I don't know that answers your question. Go out there, proactively search for things.
I guess I'm like talking, my point is actually the other way around.
Okay.
Because we haven't been out there looking for these things. Our approaches have been less extensive than this, and our philosophy has been that there isn't a permanent solution in most cases. So we're talking about ongoing, not maintenance like daily maintenance, but long-term maintenance most of the time. And that's what you see down Rain Rocks and Pitkins and those kind of places where we assume that this isn't done, it's going to keep going and we're going to keep dealing with it. We chose differently here. And I guess I'm saying,
our strategy is the same here, right? Our strategy is minimize, go up, just clean out the slide. We've had, usually they're smaller, they're not as tall, right? But we just clean out the loose material, take the head start back, the over steepened section back a little bit, and clean out the loose material. And this is just a taller one, but it really comes down to those other, that strategy has worked most places that we do it, right? Because they're typically a lot smaller. Here, we just happen to be into different types of material above us that we assume we're going to be more stable than they would. So
I'm not trying to.
It's along those lines. This is an area where all the builders know because it's got great stone, the faces on it, nice hard stone. And I remember decades ago, a bulldozer going through and clearing a slide just so you could get a vehicle through and pulling a dump truck in there all loading up. So it's been doing stuff for a long time. And back in that time period, bulldozers would come or front end loaders and push the material off the side. There's two questions in here. I know that the Marine Sanctuary has stopped the putting the material into the ocean. And with operators working on these slides, some of them died. But now that there are remote controlled vehicles, machines, is it possible to go back to that in a way to just clear the material off?
So the answer is no. I mean, let's start with, first of all, I'd like to say that the resource agencies have been very cooperative and are working with us, and there have been no issues for us not being able to do what we need to do, right? We are very high priority. And I'd like to say, and we have all the support we need all the way up to the State Transportation Agency. So whatever resources we need, we can take care of it. And we've been, we have not had any hindrance at all. So in terms of the resource agencies, been very, been working very well. We keep them updated. They know what's going on, and we are doing direct ocean disposal. So on this particular case, we are doing direct ocean disposal. There is no place to capture the material. So it's not like a small slide that's only, 50, 60, 100 feet, 200 feet tall, right? We're talking much greater than that, much steeper, vertical there, right? And so you can't, I like to say, if you're going to go to the grocery store and you see that nice pyramid of apples, what happens when you pull the bottom apple out, right? You can't do that. So we can't, and yes, we have remote controlled equipment, but it's not going to be able to get us what we need, and that's not going to solve the problem of the material up above in the overshooting area. So we've got to attack this one from the top. It's not a smaller slide where we can clean it out from the bottom and take spider hose up there and just clean it out. We tried that, right? And we are doing that when we got down to that area, that rocky area, but it started to collapse below us. So it's, once again, every slide is unique, and this one has given us many, many challenges. And I think we're as we continue through the process, we're meeting those challenges. We're doing this as quickly as we can. And to confirm that we are doing the right thing, we have brought in a third-party consultant, to come look at it, validate, make suggestions and tweaks, and we move on. But this is the correct strategy for this area, right? It's not as simple as just going in, cleaning it out, and allowing traffic through. And you'll see some videos I have here too, when we get this running again, is that it's still shedding material now. It's still moving, and we have boulders still coming down, right? There's still material coming down from these slides as we're working on it.
What's the distance from the town to the highway?
It is,
About.
it's like 600. So,
Do you anticipate being able to continue side casting throughout the project to completion?
we will, there is no place to, like I said, we can't put a person down there of the loader, right? And so we will continue, the materials naturally going there. There's no place to hold it, right? Where other locations, we've had the highway, there's enough area to hold it or something else. We don't have any place to hold it. It's not like Paul's slide. It's not like Mud Creek. We have no place to hold it. So it goes automatically, it goes directly to the ocean. And we will continue to do so until we get all the way down to the bottom and are able to pull from the bottom. We'll do that when we can, if that accelerates the work.
Yeah, it is because there's no other option. That's the reason that, for example, the sanctuary, the marine sanctuary has signed off on, being okay with that in this particular case. That's the reason that they signed off on it, because there's no other option.
There truly is no other option here, yeah. So.
Like you said, we're not getting any obstacles from any of our resource agencies. They've been great.
I just wondered
partners,
if
working with us.
and that's gonna be the situation through completion of the project.
That's what we anticipate.
Yeah.
So can I ask what might be a ridiculous question, but obviously, Highway 1 is a north-south road and it's the only entrance and egress for the Big Sur area. Is there any possible way anywhere you could create an east-west access road?
No.
No.
That's a pretty simple answer.
Yeah.
I guess to go back
Pretty solid
to
one.
just to close the loop on what I asked, which is, I'm hearing you say that the approach and philosophy for your work has not changed. It's exactly the same as it has been. We're opening the road the best way we can. We're not now gonna do something that's more extreme these days than we would used to do. We're just doing what we have to do.
Well, we want to, whatever we lead with, we want to be safe, right? We want to secure the area. So we try to minimize, remember, engineers can come up with all kinds of ideas to really, right? So we're trying to do the most expeditious, most reasonable thing that's going to leave it, secure it in a safe way. And I'll explain more as we go through the process here, right? To make sure that we don't have a problem here again in the future.
That's the issue I
As
have,
best we can.
because we know there's gonna be problems in the future everywhere on this road all the time. So,
Right, everywhere
the
all the
philosophy-
time, but it's never the same place twice, rarely, except for. well,
Sorry.
On the major slide, like, let me,
But
yeah,
yeah, I'll let you, but that's where I'm struggling, so that's just
So-
what we're talking.
all right, so here, we'll go on to the next slide.
It's working on my end.
So it's just the display that keeps freezing.
Yeah.
the TV display, so everybody at home can see the presentation.
We just can't-
Just be
Can
careful.
everyone see the presentation?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I find-
Hey, can you see the
realize I
presentation?
could Go on Zoom here.
Yes, I can. I can.
Okay,
We'll have we-
so it's,
Let's go to the,
Can you pull it off the side?
TV.
I can disconnect again, but let me see.
People in the room, the next slide is the photograph of a huge slide on Highway 1. There's dirt, there's a.
Thank you, Rick. In your mind.
I can see it in my mind.
Well, we're glad at least someone can see it.
How does this compare with, like the McWay slide?
Yeah, no, which one is that?
Pfeiffer.
Pfeiffer Burns?
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously back then it was, take the mountain down, right? We went all the way back, took the whole mountain down. Was that the quickest way to open the road? No. Is it stable today? Yes. But that's, once again, that was more stable material. You look at that material, it's like, it looks like a DG, right? It's like very good material that was able to stand, right? So, hopefully we can get.
Are there any other locations in the world that are very similar to what we have? And have the same kind of issues, and how do they manage those? Or is this very unique? How we win?
I mean, I'm sure there are other places that have. Back in access. The California coast, though, is one of the most active, right? It is kind of unique here. I mean, USGS studies this. We work very closely with them, our geotechnical engineers with them. They're doing some long-term monitoring, right? Obviously, so working closely with them, but I think this is kind of a unique area, right? So, and then once again, it comes down to the geological formations that we're experiencing here. Edge of the continent, it's different conglomerate of materials, right? Where it's not just consistent. So,
Just one other thing.
You wanna connect?
The,
Well, because then you have to be on
Um,
Zoom.
could you clarify that, I mean, it's my assumption and with some backup, that at times, maybe it's the road cut that has caused a smaller slide, but these larger slides are not dependent on
Definitively
the
can.
toe or the road cut.
It's
being the
working right now,
problem. That historically,
but we just need
this
to
goes,
move
is
on.
always
Keep going through the presentation.
correct. So what's caused by the road, what's not caused by the road, that's individually determined. Was that a contributing factor, right? So, clearly Mud Creek had nothing to do with the road, right?
So,
Like, not the road.
I don't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry, everything about this is interesting, but it seems we're definitively frozen on the TV, but we can go through the presentation. And people at home could see the pictures, but we can't see
Yeah.
them
I-
except on the side.
Yeah, I think if we continue to go through the presentation, we can try, for everyone in the room. But as long as we just keep moving along.
Katie, what if I
Does that make sense?
connected and ran the projector here and then you stayed online and advanced for the Zoom?
We can do that if you would like
I'll
to.
try it. But I just.
Yeah, I mean, we just have to start, I think, Mark. So with those of us that have been at it for a while here in this forum. You gotta admit, it's an implausible place for a road on so many counts. I mean, that's why everybody loves it. It's so special. Because it's not a same place to put a road. You get an experience, you're not gonna get any. So since the beginning, it used to be seasonal. I mean, they pulled the bridges in the winter. So recognizing that to begin with, it's a crazy thing to do. So,
Yeah.
but that's what makes it really great.
It makes it special, right? So. Maybe there's some things I can talk about while we're waiting.
They're doing their best over
Yeah,
there.
so, some of the things that we've done, and we can talk about it in future slides, but I'll just talk about it now. So, right, we're sparing no expense, right? We're being responsible, but we're sparing no expense. We have equipment on standby, on the mountain, pulling as needed, right? Any equipment we need, we are getting there, right? We're trying to plan ahead, make sure it's there when we need it, not a day later. And so, some of the things we've done is like, for example, we needed, one of the drill rigs that we have, I'll talk about later, is called a John Henry. It's a bigger track mounted rig, much faster than the spiders. And so we pulled one in, it was the most, closest one we had was in Tennessee. So we got that thing mobilized from Tennessee to get here, right? That was the quickest we could do and get one that was, on the site. So, we've had the spider hose, they were doing that initial work, but we kept 2 spider hose on site the whole time, knowing that there might be opportunities where, not really an opportunity, but. We need to have them do some specialized work, right? So we kept the spiders there on site. So that we can use them on the day that we need them and not have to wait 3 days to get them up there. We work closely with our transportation permits and we, to get heavy equipment up there, obviously, we gotta work with our transportation permits. We get those all done well in advance, getting that done. We have equipment on standby, we're in specialized equipment, we're getting into the remote equipment.
Apparently it looks like.
I think we're good to go.
They're gonna.
Can we confirm people can see the screen?
Compute.
Okay.
Thank you, Rick.
All right.
We're back.
Chief Liaison
So-
Officer. Okay,
All right, so
Thank you
here,
both.
here you can see this is, we went back to work. Here's the middle of winter. It's January and it looks like a sunny day. We're working. You can see on this photo here, you can see all these. You can see like that vertical below the bench on the left side of the slot of the cut bench. And then as it goes around, you can see through that talus pile there's a big vertical drop off. So right, so we sometimes come back and it drops feet at the head. Some of the other places we're monitoring back in the flatter portions, it's dropping a foot, but it was dropping significantly. So what was happening was we would have to go into the next slide. So here you can see the monitoring targets. So we put survey targets all over the place. We have surveyors come in and shoot points manually every day, twice a day. And then we also have an automated system, total station that's down in the
So
turnout
you
down
didn't
below
get that.
that shoots reflective targets that we placed all over the slope. So we can monitor the movement, not just in particular places where those shape arrays are or something. We monitor the entire area that we're working in above and below. So next slide. And as we excavated, what we happened was we would start pushing material over the side and it would start to drop and it would start to accelerate. So we found that we ended up needing to do was we couldn't put dozers over that headscarp, right? You couldn't put people over the edge of that crack because that's just, there's nothing stopping you from going down to the ocean. So what we did was recognizing this is a challenge, we can't stop, but we've got to continue to work. So we stayed back a safe distance. How do we do that? Was we used an excavator. We had sat an excavator down, dozers pushing to the excavator taking the material and casting it over the side, right? Because the dozers couldn't push it over. So we used excavators to cast over the side. That kept us working through the winter. As that happened though, we could work about 3 days, and every 3 days it would really start to accelerate, right? Because we're on the head of the slide and we're pushing this weight on top of the slide. And as we did that, it would accelerate and we would stop. All the monitoring that we had in place would tell us we need to stop, so we would stop. Not to mention we have spotters all over the place too. So we would stop and we would evaluate, we would see that it slowed down. These rates that it was accelerating is studied, and our geotechnical engineers studied other slides that have been studied over in Italy and other locations. And these are rates that are typically would trigger full-blown failure, right? And we were pushing those limits. And so we continue to push those limits, but we kept the workers back, use the excavator. When it really started to accelerate, we'd pull off and we'd have to sit for a couple of days, wait for it to slow down, go back to work. So we were on this on-off pattern. That's when we decided to go to the research the remote equipment. So working with Caterpillar, a contractor, started to go back to Caterpillar in Arizona, working with them. Coming up, we came up with what we could use. One thing is that technology is not quite there where we can do everything remotely, right? So we can't cut that back slope. The technology isn't good enough to give us an accurate cut on the slope, but we can do the pushing. So we got two remote controlled dozers. Go ahead, next slide. Oh, so here, I'm sorry. So here you can see the activity as we're working. This is what's happening below us. This is from Big Creek Bridge, right? So you can see how much dust that is. That is not dust from us pushing anything over the edge. That's the slide moving that we're working on this day. Next slide. Go ahead and hit the play.
I can wait for you to be in sync.
I think.
This is the conditions that we're working under, right? And so it's concerning. They were working this day, right? The spotters are there, they got the radios, and communicating what's happening above. And in preparation, when we start seeing the activity, we'll pull them back away from the edge of the slope, see what happens, and decide if we're going to continue to work that day. And typically we would work as much as we could, right? So every hour we could work, we will work. And that day you can hear the dozers working up above, right? So next slide.
Just another ridiculous question here. I'm just curious, when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking that the amount of time it takes to, do the work above and then clear below. Is there any way you can construct like a temporary bridge so that the road could at least be open north-south that goes over the slide portion. I don't know if that's possible at all, but.
No, I mean, you'd have to go all the way out into the ocean, so
Nothing to hang it
there's
on.
nothing, yeah, there's nothing there. So here you can see on the, with the remote, being able to use the remote equipment that I already talked about. So we actually had a helicopter to fly up that sea train there. Inside the sea train, you can see the guy on the right. He's sitting in the basically the Caterpillar chairs, just like the dozer. All the controls are just like the dozer. He's looking at his screens. And that's how he's controlling that dozer from up above at Whale Point Lookout, looking down on the slide. The guy on the left there's also a way you can control the dozers where we call that a belly box, where he can just strap that around and he can just control the dozer out on the site, sit right next to it, right near it, and do it from there. So one guy really likes that, so he'll sit out there in a lawn chair and he just sits there and controls it from a point where he can really get a good eye on the dozer.
So time check, I'm looking at 5 minutes.
Yeah,
so.
I'll try to go really quick, sorry.
I'll give you a little,
Once
I mean,
again,
we can run a little long, I just want you to know.
Yeah, so once again, you can see those cracks that are happening, right? So we had 7 dozers, we were doing our mass haul with these. We got down far enough at some point where it stopped moving as much, but we had 7 dozers, 2 of those being remote, 1 remote excavator, which is the one in the foreground, and then another regular manned excavator in the back. So that's what we had pushing our capacity. We got to a point where we pushed enough material, that lower bench I talked about before, the talus pile finally pushed out, and then we started making it back down to the ocean again, because it just kept stacking and stacking, adding weight, accelerating the slide. We got into a rhythm where we worked 13 days straight. I think there was good news. We met with the stakeholders. And we were having great success. But then what happened was, that's another quick video. We could probably skip this if you want, but those are just the 2 dozers basically pushing, remote dozers pushing over the edge. It's a good video though. Once again, through our monitoring, you can see all the movement we had, the acceleration, those peaks, is the amount of movement we have. Next. And then where do we at? Go ahead, next slide.
You rely, the resources you get to handle these situations, do any of them rely on federal funding?
It is reimbursable, yes.
But I mean, the
Yeah.
funds,
Yes.
Are we-
The state funds it and then it's federally can be eligible for federal reimbursement after the fact. So here you can see, once again, all the equipment we had out there pushing as hard as we can, and then came May. And in May, we started to see in the some of the movement. So above us. And here's what with those shape arrays I was talking about. You can see the vertical, and you can see up at how much it's moving up above. We know what elevation it's moving, so we can see that happening above us. So right at the time that we had the stakeholders meeting, a crack developed above us, and then the movement, we saw some slight movement earlier, but then it really started to accelerate. So we had to stop and think about what we're doing again. The crack opened up very quickly over a matter of a few days at the very beginning of May, the end of April, early May. And so here you can see the area shaded in yellow is defined where another slide occurred, some slope movement. And you can see those purple lines are the cracks. And so there's a flat bench there. And those purple lines on that bench are also some cracking. So strategy again, here, next slide. With our drone, we fly this with a drone every single day. We can compare day to day the different flights and how much movement there is. So red being going down, blue being going up. So we know this slide here is confined to that upper cut slope where we were at. So once again, the strategy was the shear dowels, right? So next slide. There's the spiders. We're doing dowels in that bench itself, in that upper bench. And then you can see the one on the side there, he's doing them on the slope where the cracking was. Strategy this time, we said, let's go with the extra effort. We brought in what we call the John Henry drill. So this drill now, we came in and shored up the access road above us. So we said, we need to make sure we stabilize that. We can't afford to lose that. So we stabilize that with this rig. It's much faster than the spiders. One of these can work, can do as much as the 2 spiders in a day. It's just a different type of drill. strategy is now we're going to, for security purposes, we're going to shear down the entire cut slope that we have already cut, everything that we can reach from below and reach from above. And so there will be a small band that's not doweled, but we did build up a little bit of a bench to get the drill rig up there, and we put 5 rows of dowels where he's sitting now. We brought in a, go ahead. We also brought in a second one of those rigs that were working so successfully. We did get a second one. And so they can pull in that, get that whole bench done. You can see on the far right, they're already removing that temporary bench they put in. They're already removing. The dowels are done on the right side of the photo there. So they can start pushing that dirt out. And then as the drills went to the left there. So the new plan is, once again, working with our consultant and our geotechnical engineers, is that we're going to leave that bigger excavation bench, leave it in place, because the fear is that if we continue to excavate that out, we're going to have more stuff above us, because the slope is cut at a 1.5 to 1 slope right now above us, and it's not stable there yet. So we're going to leave the bench in, step out, that buttresses what's above us, and then we'll cut at a 2 to 1 slope down to that rocky area. So that 2 to 1 slope doesn't leave us as much bench as we want when we get to the rocky area, but we're more confident now in that we will have enough of a bench, about 100-foot bench, instead of 200 feet. And that should still be enough in order to do the work to do the remaining slide removal down through the original slide. So you can see the bench left in yellow, the blue will be the 2 to 1 slope, and then we'll get down to a bench that where the red area is will be the bench big enough that we can cut down through that rocky area.
And Tim, that red area is the where you left in August of last year.
Mhm. So here you can kind of see what the cross section looks like, right? So you can see we're going to leave that flat bench in there and then work our way down. You can't really see here, but the slope above is 1.5 to 1 and the one below is 2 to 1, but based on the scale, it looks like it's all the same, but it is much flatter than the bottom.
When you say 2 to 1, that's 2 down, 1 out?
Yes. No, I'm sorry.
Other way?
Other way.
Okay.
So. You can see, so, and then, you know, one of the things you can see here is, I'll do it on the next slide. So then, what happened was this past weekend, we had another crack develop above us. So this is above that flatter upper bench where the spiders were working. Spiders are putting vertical dowels in that flat bench. And now one of them has gone back up and started putting dowels in that slope area where that small crack is developed. The one thing we know is this strategy works. That remember the original row of dowels I talked about we put in the very beginning, the cracking from this bigger massive slide that upper slide that we're dealing with, it came right around where those were, right? We've done other instances during this activity, this slide where we put in the dowels and it provides enough resistance where it stops the movement, right? So we know the strategy works. We'll continue to do those dowels. And as a safety precaution, we're going to do those dowels all the way down as we go. So these 2 rigs, 2 John Henry rigs with the 2 spiders will be, as we excavate down, when we resume the excavation of that 2 to 1 slope, those will all get doweled as we come down. An extra measure of security, even though it's a 2 to 1 slope, we're going to go the extra measure. It should not slow us down in terms of the excavation. Those rigs should be able to keep up with the excavation.
The dowels go in and then they're connected with a mesh or
No, the dowels are just drilled in, the steel rod, grouted steel rod, and that's it. Now we will ultimately cover the slope with mesh. So.
Okay, so.
Any burning last questions?
Is it? I just want to show that picture. Open up the one slide before real quickly. So was it the one before? Sorry. So I just wanted to point out this one. It's kind of hard to see from the scale of it, but those other slides that I talked, we're still seeing water coming out of the slope, right? Obviously, it's like we are still seeing movement. We're still seeing water. It comes out of different holes at different times, at different days. So it's one of the challenges, one of the unexpecteds we're still dealing with, right? There's still activity happening there. So if just take any questions, you could video while people ask questions or whatever.
As long as we don't have the sound on. I just want to make sure we have a chance to talk to both the people here and remotely. So if you want to set us up so we can see who's got their hands up and in the room, we just Anybody have
And I
something
can
to
switch
ask?
spots
Yes.
with you, John.
Yeah, it's two questions. Water. And then how do you know the access roads aren't gonna crumble with the rest of it?
Once again, the access road, the section above the slide, we put in the sheet pallets to help stabilize that. Premature, no cracking with evidence up there, but we went ahead and did that. It's to. As far as the water, it's just, once again, it's not the water, it's the groundwater coming out. And it's coming out below the slip plane of the slide. So there's a more stable material in this upper slide. And there's water coming down that plane between those two different types of material, right? Which helps carry slide, and helps the slide. So, and at times, because it's still active, water will pop out here, then all of a sudden it's another spot, another location, but these two slides with a ridge in between on the north side there, we still see some activity through there.
Okay, thank you.
Give me a really short answer to this, but I've heard some of the locals talk about why don't they just blow it up, explosives, or why don't they put a pump down the ocean and take water up and wash it away?
Right. So
It doesn't have to be a long answer.
yeah. We want an engineered slope that would leave you with an oversteepened slope, unstable slope. If you just go and blast it, right? What are you left with? An unstable, oversteepened vertical slope portions, right? You don't know what you get. So short answer, we did look into, we were listening to people and the suggestions, and at one point we were going to try to investigate the helicopter drops. Just to try to accelerate one of those smaller upper slides, just to see if we can knock out the toe and make that go naturally. The opportunity just didn't happen, and it wasn't going to be enough force to really cause anything. So
Yeah, we have, Sarah, if you want to speak, you can go, and then I'll read off the questions that are in the Q&A too.
Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. First, I just want to say thank you for the presentation. It was really helpful. And I wanted to bring up what John Handy mentioned in the chat, which I agree with. It would be really helpful for the South Coast community to receive some more detailed email updates, if that's at all possible, on a more regular basis, because people are making assumptions about what's happening, and this is just really useful. And on that note, if it would be possible for me, or I think I would probably be the best person to distribute it, but to have a truncated version of this recording of the presentation and along with the slide deck as well, so that we can share it with the South Coast community down here. Anybody who is unable to attend the meeting, I think that would be wonderful. And on this note, it's not, oh, I'm sorry.
Keep going.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, are you there again? Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have Starlink and it constantly is cutting out. And I also just wanted to say that we really appreciate everybody's efforts on the slide. We know it's a lot of hard work and a lot of long hours, and I've brought this up several times before, but I want to take another opportunity just to express, especially since it looks like this is going to be ongoing for a long time. I believe it's the people working on Regent's slide. I think it's Papich. Their employees drive really fast down here. So since this is going to be going on for a long time, I just wanted to bring it up again and see if I can have any contact information for somebody who could give some accountability for this. Because I think we've been bringing it up for several years and it doesn't seem to be stopping. I think somebody's actually died already. And the other day I was at Sand Dollar, and every day when they get off work at around 4:30, they're driving like 70+ miles an hour, because I believe they stay in San Simeon. And they don't even slow down by Sand Dollar, and there's like families walking around, and me and several other members of the community are really worried somebody's going to get hurt. So it's kind of a segue from the slide itself, but it does involve the employees working there. And I would just like to know who best to speak to about this that might be able to actually deliver some tangible results.
So Sarah, thank you for bringing that up. So I'm sitting next to the guy who signs their check. So Tim has heard it and it'll be conveyed. We've heard this before with maybe some of the subcontractors. And so to hear it about Papage is interesting to hear that now, so. And then the other part of your question about the South Coast, we're gonna keep, to the best that we can, keep this as an old business item at the Byways. We're continually expanding our stakeholder group. We think, Bree Harlan has been our South Coast resident. But, Bree's not,
Would you see if Sarah could fill
yeah,
that role?
but I think maybe Sarah, I think you'd be a nice stand-in for our regular, it's about every 2 or 3 weeks we meet. And then it'd be great if you could help pass on that information. And we did one presentation to the South Coast, a few from up here were able to go down, it was part of the Visit Slow county group, such as the counterpart to C Monterey. And so we'll continue to do that as what, whatever helps to get information out. The last thing I'll offer is that we're trying to revamp and create a Big Sur specific webpage just for the emergency projects. So there's a placeholder for on the Caltrans website now that just is an emergency map that shows, it's a static sheet PDF that has all the closures. But we're working right now to develop a more interactive webpage that can provide information in addition to all of the other things. But Sarah, you'll be hearing from me on the, on the stakeholder group.
Perfect. Yeah, I'd love to join in that meeting every 2 or 3 weeks yeah, so if you can pass on the information about that, I'd love to do that.
Could we go to Supervisor Daniels? I think she said she might have had to leave.
Yeah, she's taking off, but she said that she'll reach back out to
I can jump in if you want. I am
Please.
still here, but I just didn't want to go in front of the members of this body. But I'll reiterate, well, there's my screen. Hi, everyone. The thoughts that I have that I just want to say, and I heard this from Chair Deal, is that I want to make sure that we are employing the same strategy we have always employed with past slides. I know we have a public safety, and I know public safety is paramount, and that's what is guiding all the decisions that are made. But a solution that requires maintenance and protective measures in place that gets the road open is really important. And so we know that this is a mountain that has been moving for hundreds of years, right? I think you could go back, and I've heard that there were indigenous populations here that called it Moving Mountain. It had that name. And so the mountain is going to continue to move. And so whatever, and it sounds like you've been very successful with the dowel strategy and what you're doing. So this is to commend you for this presentation and all this work. And thank you for bringing us all up to speed. But coming up and continuing to move forward a strategy that gets the road open, even if it requires ongoing maintenance, is probably as good as we're going to get. And so that has to be, I think, the direction. And so I just did want to say that. I want this to be in line with the strategy we've maintained for past slides, and help us, unless we're coming up with a brand new strategy for, something Mark said, where we're going to be building, a bridge that goes somehow around the slide. We've got to employ the same strategy, and we've got to move forward. So thank you so much for all the work that you're doing and for your report today. I'm really glad I was able to be on the call and see all these slides and be here for this presentation.
So, yeah, and just to confirm, that general strategy remains the same. Open the road as quickly as we can, right? So that strategy has not changed. What's changed is this is a different slide than the other slides we've experienced, right? So that's the change. It's really not the strategy, the general strategy of open the road as quickly as possible, even if it requires maintenance. We understand that, and that has never changed. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Supervisor. We appreciate that you took the time to be here. We have a couple of comments here from John Handy. We can see on our screen in the chat. And chat is a little bit clumsy for us in general, but we'll try to manage it as best we can. I don't know if
Yes to the first question. We'll continue to give regular updates.
Okay.
As far as I think Ivan's and John's second question are similar about opening. There, just because of all the dynamic and all the changes and having slides occurring above us, that's why today we're not sitting with the ability to give an answer to when we're opening. We're working really hard to protect the work above us. We have a good strategy now going down, and in time, we hopefully, once we get back down to be able to build that narrower bench that Tim mentioned, and then deal with the rocky blocky area, deal with that, it seemed like at around that time, then we'll have a more straight line to the bottom, and we'll be able to have a projection of time. So no completion date at this time.
And I think that the most positive thing there will be to include additional South Coast representation, so we can get the word out.
Yeah.
What we do know and be really clear that nobody's trying to keep anything from anybody that we just don't know. That's a different, it's not a conspiracy, it's a lack of information, so.
And to that end, myself, Kevin Grubinski from our Public Information Office, we try to at every step make ourselves available. We'll be here, we'll continue to be here. If there's questions that you have, I think pretty much everyone knows how to get a hold of me. I'm glad to continue to share information. But appreciate your point about if we want to dispel any disbeliefs. And so that was our intent today. Like I said, pull back the curtain. You're not able to see the work that's going on just because of the nature of the closure. So today we showed you up to literally last weekend what was going on.
Who's the public information officer? I mean, is that the person that people should contact or?
Yes. Yeah, so Kevin, I oversee our public information office. And
Oh.
Kevin, who you might know, is on our team, and he's assigned to Monterey County. So his name is on all the press releases that come out.
Ken Dubinsky.
Dubinsky, yeah, I'll share his number later.
That's okay, we're just gonna bug John. I don't want the record to reflect that Mark Rancolis had to leave, so we're down one. I see no hands up on Zoom, and I believe we dealt with the chat. Oh, Sarah has her hand up again. Sarah. Sorry. Sarah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just following up really quick. I didn't catch the name of the gentleman who gave the presentation and who can I have some contact information on how to follow up with you about the issue that I mentioned?
Sarah, I'll reach out to you and help make the connection.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. And I don't see anybody else in the room, so I'm going to go ahead because we lost some time to technology and just say thank you very much. And I do believe this is part of the job of Byways, and hope we can continue to be helpful in any way possible. And I know we all appreciate that we all have the same goals, get the road open without making it unsafe, so. And I also think we all know it's hard. It's not an easy thing.
We appreciate you tolerating our frustrations at times and realizing that's, it's not a personal dig or anything. It's frustrations, and sometimes folks have to vent. And so we appreciate your understanding.
Yeah, no, I totally appreciate that and understand the situation up here, right? So this is a big deal in treating that city, so.
We got one more comment in the question and answer from John Handy. The other slides on the South Coast did not open until they were paved and stripped. Can we open future slides as soon as they're drivable prior to final paving?
I guess that's an answer when we get down to that level and we don't even know what kind of road is there right now. So that might be something that could be, something discussed later when we get down closer to the road level and know what road, if it's even there or not, and decide whether or not it's safe. We would entertain that if it was determined to be safe, for people to pass through.
We really don't know at the bottom right now for Regents, what does it look like? It's buried, right? We might have lost the shoulder down below too with all the material going over the edge, all the material pushing,
Yeah.
so.
And we know that there are always trade-offs
Yeah.
historically, to get partial access sooner causes a delay in, final completion of the project. And it seems like it's something that would just need to be discussed, as John said, at the time when we get there and can have that conversation.
It sounds like we've got some forums for that to occur, so that's the important thing, and I think I sense agreement that we want to get it open, so let's do that. We'll go ahead and close this item because we do have other things that are important to talk about today. And move on to the next item, which I think is more of a follow-up update. And it is to follow up on the discussions at the BISMAC about the Mud Creek project and what we've learned from what happened there. And I know there were going to be some process discussions, and I think we have Eric Stevens and Braylon Ammon from the Coastal Commission who might want to speak to this. And then we're fortunate to have Melanie Beretti here from HCD if there's anything she could add. So Eric, Braylon, do one of you wanna speak on this at all?
I would be happy to speak to some of it, but I think an initial question for you and the group is, what would be helpful to talk about here? So I could kind of go through the background and process and all of that like I did at Bismack, or we could do kind of a more focused discussion on LUAC meetings and the permit conditions of the Mud Creek slide as they are now. What's helpful?
My takeaway from Bismack was first, making sure everybody understands what the status is right now today with that permit and what's gonna happen next. With respect to, in particular, the offsite mitigation piece, which was of the most important to everybody else, but anything else that bears on that we should mention. And then, the further discussion about, the process by which these emergency projects and permit streamlining projects are considered with respect to public input. And what kind of a process can we set in place to address that? And then thirdly, the possibility of how we could work together to identify some opportunities for offsite mitigations ahead of projects that would allow for a streamlined project to have some options already discussed prior to choosing what sort of, what were the priorities and possibilities with offsite mitigations that would apply for various kinds of projects overseen by the Coastal Commission, because these are, in particular, for those of you who aren't geeking out about this, projects that don't go through the normal county process, which is pretty formal. These are projects that are fast-tracked through the Coastal Commission to get them done in an appropriate way. So that's the ones we're talking about. That's what I took away from the Bismack is those are the things that were all discussed, and I think when I put this on the agenda, which I personally did, which was just to make sure that Bismack follows up on them and make sure that we continue to hold that up so that we don't forget about it. Does that help?
Yeah, that's helpful. So I guess first things first, current status. The commission in March approved the final coastal development permit for the Mud Creek slide. That permit authorized all of the previous work that had been done under emergency permits. And that permit had a number of conditions that spanned kind of a range of topics. Obviously, public access is the one that I think the focus of these conversations has been. And so in terms of public access permit conditions for that project, leading up to the hearing, we received some feedback from the community about, concerns about the planned improvements at Shale Creek and the lack of community involvement in that process. And so we modified the conditions to allow for that community input during the kind of planning process for any type of public access improvements at Shale Creek. Shale Point. And just to be clear, we're not talking about this as like kind of a major new access area. It's to improve what is going to be an existing access area. So that's the Shale Point part. And then there is also this future planning condition, which maybe Eric, could you explain that? I think you have a better understanding of that than I do.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. So in terms of future planning, one of the conditions of the commission's Mud Creek approval was for Caltrans to work with the Coastal Commission and the community to develop a framework for kind of a two-part for how to incorporate improved public access into any Big Sur Highway 101 project. And if that's not feasible, if the site's too constrained, to then look at option B, which is to set up a framework for providing in lieu funds for public access somewhere nearby in Big Sur. And then I'll go a step further. While not included in the Mud Creek permit, Coastal Commission staff and Caltrans staff are in discussions about Caltrans, again, a similar process, working with community and the commission to develop kind of a feasibility analysis to identify public access projects that they could be ready to fund or to build in the future, so we don't have to kind of scramble like we did on the Mud Creek with Shale Point.
And the idea with that feasibility analysis would be to include the community in the discussion and kind of planning effort there, right?
Right. And then, Martha, to your other question about status, there is no new status that Coastal Commission is aware of since its approval in March. We haven't talked with Caltrans further about the Shell Port improvements or the revised plans for the Mud Creek. So Caltrans staff might have an update there, but at this point, no update. But as the commission lays out, we're expecting kind of the community, Caltrans, commission staff all to work together before anything happens at Shale Point.
And the one final thing that I wanted to add is about kind of future community input and process. So at the BISMAC, I had mentioned that we were planning on sending multiple forthcoming Caltrans projects to the LUAC, but it sounds like it may not be appropriate to send all of those through the LUAC just because they don't fit the scope of the LUAC's purpose. And so we are waiting on the county and looking forward to working with the county on what types of projects should go to the LUAC and what are not appropriate for LUAC review.
Great, I think that hits all three. Melanie, did you want to speak at all about what's appropriate for LUAC or not?
I mean, I can speak briefly. So, yeah, Melanie Beretti, Chief of Planning for County of Monterey. Yeah, so we are land use advisory committees. We have various ones throughout the county. And they have a fairly refined scope for the types of projects that are typically referred to those land use advisory committees. I won't go into the details of that, but generally it's related to, you know, where there's anticipated controversy, where there is formal design approval review required for hearings, and some other triggers. Our LUAC establishing bylaws also allow other matters to be referred as appropriate. And so what we are doing, county staff, we've spoken with Coastal Commission staff as well as Caltrans staff. And what we are looking at is, for the nature of the types of projects that Caltrans typically brings forward, is to create some specific guidelines for those types of projects that would appropriately fit and should come to the land use advisory committees for their feedback. And then which ones would not, for example. And there are some other aspects that we'll look forward to working with Caltrans and with Coastal Commission on as well, depending on what that kind of what that looks like. So there's a few process clarity on projects and process for how we would do that. And we do anticipate to bring a summary forward to our planning commission. So we have kind of a public hearing to give that, not hearing, excuse me, just information to share that information out and with our planning commissioners. I don't have a timeline, and I do apologize. Our staff members who are working on those are out, but we would anticipate within the next few weeks to have a draft of those of the general guidance in the process that we'd be proposing to work with Caltrans and Coastal Commission to look at.
Thank you. And I would add, since I've had a long relation with the LUAC scope is very strictly defined through the Board of Supervisors. So we have to, if it's a change in their scope, it would be something that would need to be acted upon at that level as well. So we've had, I won't go into the history of that, but we wanted to make sure that they did a really focused job on the things that they're allowed to and appropriately doing. In years past, that wasn't always the case. So we would have to relax some of those strings, I think, which might require some action.
And that's part of the staff is looking at. And I'll also add, you know, I think one thing was, I think this is a continuing conversation, I think because land use advisory committees have a very specific scope and and they have authority to provide advisory, they are established to provide advisory to our board, our planning commissioners. And so I think, again, part of that process conversation will include clarity on what that looks like and how that's incorporated for projects they do look at that would be going through directly through the Coastal Commission as well. So these are points in the process we want to kind of lay out, determine if or what we may need to be changed in their in potentially their bylaws. And then also, I do believe that it will likely leave a gap where Coastal Commission and Caltrans may wish to have some community input, or at least made aware of other projects that wouldn't necessarily be referred to. You know, I think these are just typical maintenance projects that, you know, you're, you know, pipe in, pipe out kind of thing, where it wouldn't typically go to the land use advisory committee. And so, you know, again, I would look to Coastal Commission and Caltrans at that point for anything that there is a gap through what the land use advisory committee would look at, to see other avenues and means for getting communicating out and getting the additional community feedback for anything else.
Did Caltrans want to weigh in on anything you want to add to that before we go to questions?
Thank you. Yeah, we've been working with the county and the commission to try to help refine the process. Because, you know, it's something I think needs to be a little more formalized. We're looking forward to that. As you referred to some of the smaller maintenance projects, they may not even warrant a community outreach kind of component, or it might be fulfilled through the actual commission, Coastal Commission hearing itself, when we take action. So again, all things we're looking to try to work with all parties and smooth the process. So one, it's transparent, understood, and easily navigated, so that we can get these projects delivered as quickly as possible.
So we all know what to expect in terms of process. That would be really helpful. Anything else, John?
I'll just add that, you know, in the room today are the people who are going to help deliver that. Scott's in charge of the environmental process, the coastal development process. I oversee engagement. Melanie's here, we're all here at Coastal Braylon and the Erica here. We're all here to deliver what is going to be an open and transparent process. And I hope, and you know, would see this committee and this group once again continue to play a pretty important role in the development of that.
Great, and I'm just enchanted to hear that these things we discussed at the BISMAC are ongoing, and I think that's a place where we can help. Is BISMAC start something and maybe we can continue to follow up on it. So I'd suggest we keep something about this process at least on our agenda to check in every so often and see how we're doing and see whether this group has any role that we can contribute. Okay, questions, Dan?
Yeah, I'm a little confused. I gathered from the Caltrans presentations and future items that projects on the road will never be finished. There's always going to be an ongoing project. And if there are access is a continual condition of the maintenance of the road, I'm wondering what, apart from, it sounds like more access, that is building more access infrastructure is always the right answer, as what I've gathered from the Coastal Commission presentation. So I wonder if there's any vision of what would be a final vision of an access infrastructure, as opposed to just more is better, building up more parking lots, more places to stop. Can you say something about your ultimate vision for Big Sur as a wild natural area?
Braylon, do you want to respond or not?
Sure. That's a big question. So first thing that I think is important to highlight is we're talking about public access mitigation here. And so that's kind of compensatory for impacts to public access. So the idea is, you know, where there are impacts, there will be mitigation, and that's where the improvements would occur. And And then second, in terms of broader vision, I mean, I think we're talking about hopefully Highway 1 that is accessible to all, including residents, and there are opportunities for people to drive along it and enjoy that experience, and also stop and get out of their cars and enjoy Big Sur in another way like that. At the same time, I definitely would not say that our perspective is that, you know, infinitely more access is always better, including, you know, we all the idea that we always need to build more parking lots and more things like that, right? There are appropriate places to do that and appropriate amounts to do that, and that's absolutely something that we do and will continue to consider whenever working on public access issues in Big Sur, and something that we also welcome community's input when we're going through those processes. And on that, one thing that I wanted to add onto the conversation after Caltrans spoke was that we're absolutely open to other types of community input on projects that don't qualify for LUAC review. Not sure exactly what that would look like, but we're absolutely open to it. And there is always the opportunity for people to participate through the commission's hearing process. We always notice projects well before they go to hearing. There's a public comment period, and we read all the public comments and take them seriously under advisement. And when conditions are raised, we often make changes to projects, as we did with Mud Creek. So I would just encourage people who are interested to engage with the commission's process. You're welcome to reach out to Eric or myself to get your email or address on our noticing list, and we can just notice you for every Caltrans project or every project in Big Sur, or, you know, some subset of things like that. We can just put you on the list and you'll get notified. So that is another opportunity for public input and involvement.
Thank you, Braylon. Sarah? Your hand was up? Your hand was not up.
Yes, my hand was up. Thank you.
Okay.
I guess I just want to make a comment. I don't know if this is answerable necessarily or just a comment. And then I do have a question, but my comment is that I am confused about how a landslide impedes public access if it is in a portion of the highway that didn't have public access before. For instance, Mud Creek or Regent Slide, there might be a turnout impacted, but it's not. To me, it doesn't seem to make logical sense that a landslide impedes public access where there was not previously public access. So I just wanted to make that comment, and maybe there's some clarification I could get at another time. But I was wondering if there's a document that explains what the guidelines are for public access points regarding offsite improvements, or that like explains how these places or projects are chosen. Just because I think that community involvement could be more impactful if we have an idea of how these places are chosen. Residents that live here might have some input about what could be improved upon that is already in disarray rather than creating something new.
Sure, I can answer both of those. So the second question is probably easier, which is that there is not a kind of specific guidance document or master list of like public access receiver sites for mitigation. And that's exactly what we're talking about putting together in the near future. That's exactly what Eric was describing, that we're hoping to do, because we think that that's the right way to do this. It's going to make it easier for everyone, and the outcomes are going to be better. So absolutely. In terms of why there was public access mitigation here, it's because this was a large revetment that was constructed at Mud Creek, and revetments occupy public trust resources. Now, oftentimes that means kind of public beaches which are used as recreational access. In this case, that was not the case. There's not a, or that wasn't the case in the same way that it might be in, you know, Santa Cruz main beach or something, right? It's different, but large revetments also retain kind of sand forming material that's within landslides and bluffs. And that material is what feeds what's called the littoral cell, that supplies sand to regional beaches up and down the coast. And so we identified public access impacts from that. We have like a standard approach to calculate impacts associated with armoring. And the majority of that was accounted for by just the reopening of the highway, but we felt that a little bit more was appropriate.
Thanks. I'm going to go to Kate Navoa because she hasn't spoken today, and then we're going to have to move on. We're running out of time today. We just really need more time. Kate?
Excuse me, I just wanted to bring up the point that that everybody keeps referring to the LUAC, and that was an issue the last time they tried to have a community LUAC meeting about these, Mud Creek in particular and Sail Point, is that there's two LUACs. There's a North Coast LUAC and there's a South Coast LUAC. The South Coast LUAC is very interested in both the Mud Creek and the Shale Point projects. And so we need to be notified, and if you decide to have a joint meeting of North and South Coast LUACs, then it has to be on the South Coast, where you get to see the projects and where we can actually communicate with you guys other than through Zoom. So I'd like you to keep that in mind for future references when you do give your notices.
Thank you, Kate. I know that issue has been discussed at some length and will not happen again. That we'll make sure the projects include the people from the correct LUAC when we get them there. It was understood that was in error. So much appreciated. All right, Steve, okay, I mean, we're running really short here.
I understand. I could talk for at least a half an hour.
I know you can. Don't.
You know, partly because I'm on the LUAC, North Coast LUAC. I appreciate Kate's distinction there. But the LUAC isn't just about the design of the built environment. It's a land use advisory. It's looking at the land, and so there are often things, you know, a culvert may go in and it's like a culvert. What's the big deal? It's no big deal. Or a retaining wall or whatever, but often the effects of these things have serious land use repercussions. Most important to me is not to become another blockage to get stuff done. You know, as simple as it can be is better. Just but to exclude the LUAC or to exclude community input, which is the LUAC is a forum for community input, is not the answer. It's to simplify that process. I mean, that could be done through some phone calls rather than oh my God, all of the stuff that has to go into this.
Yeah, formal.
And I just want to say to the Coastal Commission, my understanding is that it has two imperatives. One is coastal access, but the other one is environmental protection. So until Caltrans has any kind of plan for dealing with things like invasives, money could go not into creating more access, but into dealing with invasive plants as an example for mitigation.
And I'm hoping that the mitigation discussion will be as broad as possible and include all these kinds of ideas so we can at least air them. I'm gonna have to cut it off.
No,
I don't mean to.
I understand.
It's all good discussion.
Yeah.
It's just that we are running out of time. The other thing I would say is if one of these mitigations could give some more support to Byways, we could do a lot of this work, but right now we can't. So the next item is just a really quick Bixby Bridge Emergency Task Force update. I don't think I saw Aurelio on here. Mauricio, I'm sorry, I was thinking of a totally different person. But very quickly, the Board of Supervisors did vote to continue the emergency no parking on the Old Coast Road. I think many of you probably saw that. Dan and Laura did a great spot on KSPW. And I know that there's going to be continuing discussions on what to do going forward. And I don't know if you want, there's some from your end or anything you want to say about that at this point. Just that the issue isn't over.
Yeah, there's, you know, the Chamber of Commerce recently met and, it, you know, in concept supports what this organization talked about earlier that was kind of the genesis for the task force and, basically, you know, supporting efforts that do solve issues at Bixby Bridge, of course, and as this body spoke, and other, you know, so referred to choke points along Highway 1. And so, you know, and I think that it's an ongoing discussion issue. You know, personally, my thing is, you know, what we do, the actions we've taken so far are most effective when they're enforced, and that seems to be a, you know, critically missing component of the solution as well, that hopefully will change in the future.
Thanks. So that just, I know if anybody has anything pressing to say, I just wanted to say that will also remain on our agenda as something to continue to talk about. The issue is not over yet. And as we know, we've talked about at length, it's more than just that one place. So we're trying to figure out ways to get people to have that ability to get through. And so I'm going to move to new business, and because I wanted to give John at least a few minutes to introduce the Coast Highway Management Plan Update Project. John.
If you don't mind, I'm just gonna roll into everything I have to say, just we're on a timeline.
Feel
Yeah.
free, go for it.
So, as was announced at the last BISMAC, we have been able to secure some federal funding to have some resources to help pick up the 2004 Coast Highway Management Plan and help work to, you know, bring it to what are today's needs. So, just making that announcement to say that we're gonna be working with this group to have a focused meeting, a special meeting of the Byways, just to talk about the CHMP. It'll be, again, another very public process, a very important process. It'll feed into everything we're talking about here today. So more to come on CHMP. We are waiting. I mean, we're also now facing uncertain federal funding sort of times. So we're hoping that things still could continue to go through. So we have those resources, but it is our desire to work with everyone on the CHMP. We have projects. I think we've talked about the LULAC a little bit. We have projects that we are continually developing, and it's my goal to continue to bring information about those projects. And they're projects of varying degrees. Things to the, like, for example, we are going to be working with Alia Ventana in July. There are 25 eucalyptus trees lining Highway 1 that are posing a fire risk. We're working in partnership with the agencies and with Ventana. We're going to be removing those trees. That work will be happening in July. Just an example of some of the things we just letting everyone know. Another project, we have a culvert project that we're working on. The ongoing culvert maintenance and repair work and replacement work along Highway 1. There's 9 culvert locations. We submitted our application for coastal development permit in March, and we're hoping to have that work, have that project ready to list or ready to begin doing our contracts, etc. Later this year in the fall. 9 projects. We've been working with Monterey County and Coastal Commission on that as well. Another project is, let's see, another project I want to bring up, one that I've talked about before in this group, as well as with some of our stakeholders. The Coastlands 2 retaining wall and bridge rail. I think we've interacted a lot about some of the design aesthetic treatments of that. That project for update, that construction is planned in January of 2026. That's the goal. But just to offer that we've appreciated using this forum multiple times, appreciated working directly with the community on giving some feedback. It's my goal to continue to bring things like this to this group and others. there's, just to bring up one more as far as project related, there's something at Big Creek. There's gonna be another repair, a tieback wall repair. That may go through the LUAC. We're working to kind of work through some of those issues, but it's the type of thing that we're working to navigate whatever is needed and whatever is asked of us through either postal or through the county, through the permitting process. Our goal and intent is to help deliver quality products and to work with our agencies to be able to do that. So just want to mention the Big Creek tieback wall as well. Just by way of announcements, in addition to that, a reminder that there will be what we hope is the last overnight closure for Rocky Creek. That'll be June 22nd. That'll be a night closure. Those have been going really well. We're getting work done quickly. So please look for our media releases, our social media. That's the best way to keep in touch with us on that. And the last thing I think I'm going to mention, just to kind of sped through those, just to spend a little on this last one, is having to do with the Garapata Bridge. As everyone here knows, we have not been successful at securing a permit to replace that bridge rail, despite multiple years of attempts. We have not been successful at that. However, we today, Caltrans, are still sitting on the risk of having a bridge rail that is coming to pieces. And so we own that risk. So what we are going to implement to manage that risk and help reduce that for us, we're going to be working to reduce speeds for drivers as they cross the bridge. And so what that will look like is a series of signs indicating reduced speed limits. There, we are going to install delineators on the bridge itself so as to create friction as the driver. It's an awareness that I really need to slow down because there are things in my periphery that I'll be driving through. We have to reduce the speeds to keep drivers safe as they cross the bridge, because we are sitting on a risk that we can't own like that. It's going to be a measured process to success. Hopefully, if we bring down those speeds, that'll be the measures that we keep in place. To track that, we'll be installing a radar system to measure the track speeds and report back to us to know how fast people are going. If people are still speeding despite those measures, there could be additional incremental improvements that we install along the bridge. We need to keep people safe as they cross that while we work to continue to figure out the long-term need and approach to the bridge rail. So I wanted to hear that first from you, right? It's going to be a look and change of the bridge, but it's something we need to do to keep people safe as they cross the bridge.
Can your radar count cars?
It will be, I don't think I don't think it's counting. I think it's just tracking, it's tracking speed. So we know how fast they're going.
Check and see.
Nice try.
Count cars.
Yes, multitask.
So let me see, I want to make sure I cover
Do
it.
you know reduced speed to what?
I think our target is 35 miles an hour. So tell your friends, please don't speed on Garapata. Cross the bridge higher than that, and we show that as a trend. There'll be additional measures that we have to, we're doing everything we can to keep the lanes open. I mean, ultimately, as we have said publicly, is if it's necessary to reduce the bridge to one lane, that might be an ultimate strategy we have to do to be able to manage that. But we currently can't live with the situation like this there with those bridge rails.
And I think I would just add to that, that the same situation will occur at Rocky Creek because as a result of all the construction and the age of the bridge, there's also rail degradation is accelerated in that location as well.
So I just hope everyone appreciates that, from our perspective, we're doing our best to keep this road open. I mean, you heard from Tim, that the checkbook is open and available for us. We have no limits on Regents. We're doing exceedingly well at Rocky Creek. The seawall, even the seawall project down below is doing really good. We have this additional overnight closure. Please, if you have questions, reach out to us.
Right. And I really wish we had more time available to delve into this, but we really appreciate at least raising the issues and also you're being available offline so that people can follow up as they need to. Thank you, John. And then before we move on, I just want to recognize that we have had a previous discussion. I think the Forest Service brought it to us about the Sycamore Canyon Highway 1 intersection.
Yes, correct. Hello, everyone. I'm Parker Erickson. I'm the range technician for the Monterey District, Los Padres National Forest. First off, I wanted to acknowledge the local residents' emails and thank them for bringing up their the congestion that happened May 14th and the we'll call them local entrepreneurs selling waters and food during that weekend. We were not aware of that at all or approved anything of the sort. And also wanted to acknowledge the difficulties local residents have to go through with the congestion. and how it also dampens travelers' experience and puts undue burden on PMC as they are having staffing issues. We're all aware of Sycamore Canyon's congestion issues, and that's why we're kind of also bringing up this safety concern and hoping to work with Caltrans on a safety assessment, which I believe Ranger Finn has talked to you about at a Bismack meeting before, from my understanding. So we just want to offer up our support for that in finding any solution to the congestion there and safety at the intersection.
Okay, given the shortage of time, I'm hoping that we can bring this forward as an old business agenda item in a future meeting, and that perhaps Caltrans and the Forest Service would be able to talk a little bit about options there, because I know there's a lot of public interest in that intersection. Steve?
Well, I mean, really, it seems to me that there's two issues here. There's Sycamore Canyon and what Alan Perlmutter documented and has talked about for ever, which is real. And then there's simply the intersection. How do you get off Highway 1 onto Sycamore Canyon, or off of Sycamore Canyon onto Highway 1? And I mean, the latter is something that VSBO can deal with, or Caltrans. I don't think Caltrans has anything to do with Sycamore Canyon Road.
Yes, I just wanted to acknowledge the Alan email and everything about that.
Yeah, so the Caltrans involvement would obviously be the highway, but there is an issue there as well.
With the approach road.
Yeah, so we did hear.
Since it is a US Forest Service, I mean, it would be a,
How do you get
I'd
on?
say locally led, but it's, by the US Forest Service led project, and we'd be working with them.
So you guys are gonna talk, and we're gonna put it on the agenda, and you'll come back and talk more? Okay. Any of that before we move along, because we're running out of time, and I apologize.
Quick one.
Yes.
On this current topic, talking with some local residents, just an acknowledgement that traffic is increasing on that road.
Yes.
I don't expect we're gonna see that change in the near future. And the fact that you alluded to the fact that Parks Management is unable to meet the conditions of their agreement to have personnel on site to help manage and mitigate the increase in traffic, just the flow, to manage the flow of traffic on that road. And if they're not able to do that, does that mean that someone else needs to contract who will meet the requirements of that agreement?
Yes, I know Ranger Finn and Recreation Officer Shavine Simmons are aware of those contractual situation, and I know in terms of PMC, they have 2 individuals down there who moved down there Memorial Weekend, actually, that are there at a camper site in the parking lot, who are there 24/7. They're currently on leave right now, but to help with that situation with congestion and staffing. So hopefully that will assist with having staffing up top if they're down below permanently. But currently, Ranger Eifert has been listening to what's been happening at the Bismack, been happening at the land use plans, and we are trying to find different solutions.
So, summer is here.
Yes.
I don't know why we, instead of 4 people, there are 2 who of Parks Management personnel who are on site and yet on leave. And
Yes.
so, my math tells me that comes to a net 0. Summer is here.
Yes.
And I think that there should be some sort of urgency in making sure that's a safe situation for certainly the visitors, but the residents of that road as well. It's
Public access, guys. This is all about trying to increase public access and make sure people can get to enjoy these things. So, I mean, that's everybody here. We all have to do that. So, whatever it takes, But when we get letters like that, we don't usually hear from members of the public as often as that. Alan took a lot of time, and Dick Ravitch took a lot of time, and there's been a project in the past, and here we are today without a change. So
yes,
we can.
And I just want to make a correction. The letter that I read that Alan Perlmutter submitted The date of the incident when he was out with others trying to help manage traffic and relieve this log jam on the road. I don't remember what date was in the letter, but when I spoke with him, it was Father's Day weekend, just a week or two ago. The Sunday of Father's Day weekend, and so this is again, it's a holiday weekend, and again, urgency.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'm really sorry we can't do more, but we can't. We have reached the end of our time, and I'm gonna put whatever we didn't get to back on the agenda to try again at our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is September 24th. And perhaps in the meantime, we will have an opportunity for a special meeting just to talk about the CHMP update opportunities and process once Caltrans knows a little bit more about that. So I'm hoping everybody here will stay in touch and keep up to date about that. And I really appreciate all the participation. I think this has been very informative. I know I learned a lot, and I think it's worth time. John?
I was gonna give a special thanks to Katie for, despite all of the, despite all the technical issues, not running out of the room, which is what I probably would have done.
Yes, and remaining cheerful throughout. Thank you, Katie. I know it's hard. This is the Big Sur is the place where technology goes to die. So with anything to do with us, you gotta expect challenges. That being the case, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn this meeting at, it says here, 7 after 11, which I don't think is right. I believe it's 12:05. I know, well, it's a clock. I think they should do that. 12:05. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.